some research and a lot of application development in this lab. This is translating the science that is coming out of our various work that's happening across CIFOR-ICRAF into user-friendly interfaces, user-friendly tools that people can use to interact with data, to learn and to generate the types of evidence they need in their own decision-making processes. So one of the major challenges that we have at the moment is land degradation. And this is a challenge for many reasons, because it impacts productivity, whether it's agricultural systems or it's rangelands, but also because it makes these systems more vulnerable to climate change. So as we look at, addressing these types of challenges, it's really important that we bring evidence into this process, and so that people are using data and that we're making informed decisions. And also when it comes to just the overall resilience of landscapes to climate change, in the past, in many parts of Africa, we have big data gaps, and not just in Africa, but across the tropics. So we work a lot in terms of addressing these types of gaps, and that's where we often use things like remote sensing or Earth observation data. We use models to predict soil properties, to predict land degradation status, to predict the distribution of species, including invasive species, so that we can address these things and target our interventions more appropriately. Because when we don't use evidence, we end up doing blanket recommendations, and we end up doing things that are not targeted properly, and that means we're wasting a lot of resources doing things that are not appropriate in the wrong places. So this is really one of the key aims of what we do, is to help sort of bridge that gap and create solutions that people can use in a more appropriate and targeted way. When we design tools or platforms, a big challenge is often how you package this type of thing and how you make it accessible to users. And oftentimes we're talking about stakeholders from a wide range of different backgrounds, and that they may be government, they may be private sector, they may be NGOs, civil society, various types of partners. So it's a challenge to kind of package things, make things relevant for all these different partners. And this is where we apply something called human-centered design, where we don't develop platforms ourselves in isolation. We co-design them with the stakeholders that are going to use them, so that we make sure that from the onset, from before we even start developing, for example, a web platform or something like that, that they are involved in this process, that they conceptualize it properly, that they help us build it, basically. And that is something that contributes a lot to the sustainability of these types of platforms. Because if you have people's buy-in from the beginning, if they understand it and they're sort of invested in it, there's a much higher likelihood that they'll use that platform beyond an individual project or a program.